Everybody, welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm here with Claire today. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I can't wait to get to know you a little bit more myself. And can you just tell our listeners a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a real estate team. I've got about 40 agents and 5 or 6 staff now. We are in Southwest Florida. I started as a real estate agent and have kind of grown the company from there. I'm a mom of 3 boys. I've got twins and then one 19 months behind them. So it's a wild household, all boys. And yeah, I'm married and I love horses and dogs.
Oh, we love that. We love all the hobbies too. That's so great. And
Yeah,
we have a lot of mom listeners, so they can resonate, with starting a career and being a mom and all of the
definitely.
things. I know when we previously chatted, we talked a lot about team building and
Hmm.
your journey of developing your team. A lot of our listeners are probably at that time where they're like, should I hire? Should I not
Hmm.
hire? What was that journey like for you, and how did you finally take the leap?
Yeah. So really, I was a single agent, and real estate is a funny industry where, and maybe it's not just real estate. I think it's just real estate, but I feel like it's an industry where it's very accepted to just be a solo entrepreneur and not hire any help or staff or anything and do this 80-hour a week job by yourself. Um, and that was fine when I was younger and had no kids and I had all the time in the world and I could drop everything and go meet a customer anytime and it was no big deal. And you throw in 3 kids at one point under 2 years old with the stress of, I want to be a great mom. I want to be present with my kids. I don't want to work all the time. And that started to put a lot of pressure on me.
Yeah.
So that was really my reasoning for kind of figuring this out and starting the team. I wouldn't say it developed into when to make my first hire and all that good stuff, but really the beginning was just how do I get out of this? How do I find a way to make this money and do this business, but not sacrifice everything I have, all my time.
Yeah,
So
I can relate to that.
yeah, yeah.
I love how you mentioned time. Like, I find now that I'm an entrepreneur, I value time more than ever. And
Mm-hmm.
like you were mentioning, in my earlier years of starting my business, like now I've had my business for almost 7 years,
Mm.
I would waste as much time. I felt like I had all of the time in the world. And
Yeah,
then you get like 2 years in and you're like, wait, what am I doing?
yeah, yeah.
I'd love to know your experience. That was like, was it really motherhood? Would you say was that tipping point mainly that you mentioned? And where were you able to get so efficient with your time after hiring your team?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely was motherhood that put the constraint on me, right? And I think that's part of the issue when you don't have a constraint. Like you said, you can spend all the time in the world because there's no reason not to. And so I'm a firm believer that people that have constraints, sometimes people will come to me and be like, "Well, how would I do that? How would I juggle that? I have all these things." And it's almost like, "Well, no, that's a good thing." Right? Because it's almost to me I see the people that don't have anything that are ones that struggle. When you have all these things, you are forced to use your time wisely. And so, yeah, the kids definitely created that where I had to think differently. Either I was just going to keep living this life or I had to find a better way. And so that spiraled me into the team. And in the beginning, I was like, no, I don't want to manage people. I want to sell real estate, right? I'm not a manager. I don't want to do that. But yeah, as I grew, I hired a coach right away in COVID when things were really scary. But I took the leap and hired a coach. I knew if I was going to do it, I needed to do it right. I'm a firm believer in coaches because you can just do what took someone 20 years in 4, right? Or less. So I hired a coach. I started getting all the systems together, and then yeah, and then came the hires and everything like that. Um, I think for any business, I can't remember the question, but I want to talk. I want to mention this quickly. Is just that your first hire can feel really scary, but finding somebody that's really great who is good at the things that you're not good at, and who can take all of that off your plate. Like we look at that as an expense, and we look at that as a scary thing, but the opportunity cost of not hiring that person, you know, a lot of times that's all it takes, depending on the size of your business. I mean, I didn't have to grow this big. I could have just functioned with a really good assistant and gotten my time back that way as well. So,
That's so good to know. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And like when you made your first hire, were you hiring for your internal like back ends, or were you hiring other agents to basically like join your real
Yeah,
estate team? For the listeners, if you're not familiar, like you can have, right, like a bunch of agents under you where
yeah.
you're actually building like the Claire team.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and in real estate that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, which I made as well, is hiring agents first.
Okay.
It's less risky. You don't have to pay them, right? They're on commissions. It's unlike other businesses where you have to pay that person. But it's very difficult if you don't have the systems and the training and everything put together to just, essentially the only reason somebody would come then is because you're handing them business. So there are some small teams that will do that. My team's not built that way today. It's built for them to come on the team and build their career. So yeah, the first hire really needs to be an admin. And the biggest mistake I made with my admins is I was hiring somebody for a low salary, right? I didn't want to take the risk, so I was hiring people that didn't have real estate experience. I thought I just need somebody to do admin tasks. It's not a big deal. And I just remember talking to my coach once, crying in my car, because I was like, I just feel like I have more children that I have to manage, right? And like, this is not what I intended. So we agreed, and I finally put up the money and hired somebody who had been in the industry, knew what she was doing. She's still with me today. She is, by the time this airs, she's my chief operating officer of my company at this point.
Love that.
And it was the first hire that really took things off my plate and allowed me to just do what I do really well, and anything else she handled. And that was just a game changer.
That's amazing. I find when I have team members that do that, it is like such a breath of fresh air. And
Mm-hmm.
I also realize I'd love to know your opinion on this. Like my communication style
Mm-hmm.
prior to having a team was like, shouldn't you just read my mind? Shouldn't you know like what I don't want to be doing? Like that's
Yeah.
why I hired you. I had
Yeah.
it in the job description. Like
Yeah.
I can just be a very literal person.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized like this is another human. I
Mm-hmm.
have to be a little bit more nurturing.
Yeah.
And it totally like changed the way that I communicate now with my team. I'll literally tell them, I'm so stressed today. Can you
Yeah.
please do this?
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
like just read my mind.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole nother level. And that's why even on our team, we have staff for some of our top agents, but like we hire them and we train them how to work with people. And like even our regular agents, like we teach them how, like I have to teach them how to have leverage. Because even me when I was an agent, I used to hire like transaction coordinators. And of course, what do we all say? They can't do it as good as me, right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, there's that mentality that like, oh, you need to just do it. You're expected to do it, and it'll never be good enough because your bar is you, right? So yeah, there's a whole shift that has to happen. One of my coaches, talks about the 80% rule, right? Like if it's at least 80%, it's good. It's good enough. Like you can't expect 100%. Not you can't expect 100% effort, but you cannot expect perfection. And then yeah, you have to learn how to communicate. And I think if you're going to grow your business, you need to grow yourself. You need to grow personally, in how you deliver feedback and how you handle feedback and how you're becoming a leader. You're leading other people. So I think that's super important to take into consideration if you're going to grow your business.
Definitely. Like, it's so funny that you said that because I talk about that a lot on this show. And I started my business so young that I thought I would always be a solopreneur. Like, I had one gal that would like help me with small things, but I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that I would be like leading the team that I have now. And I really feel like it's my greatest gift, like now at 29, how I communicate, like even internally with my family. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty good at delegating now versus just being like really pissed in my head, like, why don't you know that I need you to do the dishes?
Yeah.
So it's helped me in other areas of my life. Have you found that too? Like this is like a glow up for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And with your kids too. I mean, it's how you talk to them and yeah, your relationship and everything. It's yeah. You have certain habits and things that you'll do and you have to work on that stuff. You'll be willing to work on that stuff because you're going to ask your people to work on their stuff too. So
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. It's all across the board. And I'm sure you've brought this book up, but like the 5 levels of leadership is one of my favorite books. Super, super good at, talking about how, you go from a level 1 where people are just doing what you tell them to do because you have a title, all the way to level 5, which is where now you're a leader and people like really want to follow you and you can influence other people. And so I think that's a really good one if anybody's looking to kind of step into leadership.
It's really helped me allowing my team members to find that leadership too, because like
Yes.
I always like to be very honest on the show, like
Mhm.
I can have a bad day,
Sure.
where I'm like,
Yeah.
I would love to know if you do too, because sometimes I'm like, does anybody else feel like this? I'm like, should I just burn this down? This is a
Yeah.
long day.
Yeah.
I'd rather just like sit on my bed and eat bonbons,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
than do this, today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now my team will be like, Caitlin, you can do it. Like, we
I
believe in
know.
you. It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
nice to
Bless
have.
them. Yep. I get those too. And yeah, no, 100%. I'll joke about it. One day I'm going to burn it all down and whatever. And, and the next day everything's great and the energy's so great in the office. But yeah, there's challenging days that will tax you. And I don't know, my philosophy on those is just, just get through that day and don't make any big decisions. Don't do anything stupid and go to sleep and wake up the next morning because usually it passes. But yeah, yeah. And I tell my team too, like if I'm in a meeting, I'll be like, I'm just not in a good energy space today.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, like being honest. I think like
Hmm.
thank goodness we have that in modern day. My mom
Yeah.
like grew up in the 70s and her dad actually ran a real estate firm. So like I'm very
Oh, wow.
familiar with real estate
Yeah.
outside of Philadelphia. They ended up expanding. My mom
Mhm.
was like supposed to take it on and she
Oh,
was like,
wow.
I don't know about this, and she changed her career. I love real estate. My grandfather, he owned many houses, rental
Okay.
houses out here in the Chester County, Delaware County area,
Nice.
which we were like so fortunate for. A lot of my
Hmm.
family lives in those houses now. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
been great,
Yeah.
building like the generational side of it. But my mom always says that she's like, back in the day, like I couldn't just walk in and be like, I'm having a bad day, Like, she was like, you had to like put it on. It was like different times,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's really a really special environment too. I would say not many work environments are that way even today, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's a lot of corporate environments that are kind of just like, well, just get your job done. So I think that's something really special I know about like my team and our environment and my employees. Like they love being here, they want to work, and we have that kind of open communication. So that is something, again, if you're going to grow your business, like work hard to do that kind of stuff because you'll get people that stay with you forever because they feel pushed and motivated and growth and they feel heard and they feel like they're growing the company with you, which is awesome.
Yeah, it helps them feel a part of something bigger.
Hmm.
Like company culture, I find is something that's not talked about enough, especially
Yeah.
in entrepreneurship, because people are like, oh, you just have 2 or 3 people,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden overnight, you're like, whoa, I have like 45 people
Yep.
working for me.
Yep.
It can happen so quickly, as you mentioned.
Yep.
My fiance actually used to work in company culture. So
Oh,
it really
neat.
made me think about people and like, do they
Yeah.
like working? And, I grew up in a family where like work was always negative once my mom
Mm.
moved out of that career and into a
Yep.
different career. So
Hmm.
developing this business, I was like, can work even be positive? Like that was a
Mm.
really large belief for me.
Yeah.
How did you start to create that company culture? I know you mentioned like being open and being
Yeah.
honest with your employees and how you've created this dynamic, did you
Hmm.
have to sit down and like write values, or did it just kind of come naturally?
Yeah, so we follow EOS. I've read Traction. I read Traction when I first started the team. So it really talks about having these meetings every quarter and then at the end of the year. And so in those meetings, a lot of it is, the first part of it is tackling conflict. And I had a coach at the time that was really good at it. And so he got us all, we flew across the country to California to meet with him. And we sat there and dealt with that kind of stuff. And like, there was a long time where my staff was scared to say anything to me, right? And that when you're the boss or whatever, they kind of, there's that a little bit of that fear, and we had to kind of break through that. It's like if you're going to have a really healthy leadership team and a really healthy culture, you've got to have conflict. They have to be able to say what's on their mind, and then you as the leader have to be able to take that and process it and argue it too, right? And go back and forth. And so some of our sessions would get heated, but it's like we were being heard, and so we would come to a solution. So that was really cool. I think that's really what did it. Another one, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. We all read that together. So in that book, she takes a company that goes through that whole conflict, and some people don't. Some of the employees end up not being the right fit for that team and all that stuff. And so I think that's how we got there. Is we really dug deep into that, and that was huge for us.
That's so interesting. I really
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing that too, because
Yeah.
like as the boss, like most of us listening to this show is probably the boss of like some sort,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're managing
Yep.
people. And I hate even using that word boss, like CEO, right? Is like a
Yeah.
better term. But we can be intimidating. And I think like we see ourselves so differently. It might just be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I was just giving them constructive criticism, or
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make things more efficient. But as you mentioned, sometimes it may not land well. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I really had to reflect on that when I was in
Yeah.
my early years, like actually in COVID. I was like, wow,
Mm.
I am being so mean. I
Uh-huh.
wouldn't want to work for me. Like I had
Yeah.
to look at like my communication style.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like you said, giving them feedback and stuff. I think naturally it's really, especially, you know, most of us who have businesses and go out on our own, it's a lot of times because we don't fit in the box, right? We don't want, like, I was always one. I'm not gonna. No one's gonna tell me what to do. And I think a lot of us entrepreneurs are that way. That's why we end up on our on our own, working
Yeah.
for ourselves. And so because of that, we are really good at finding problems and solving problems, right? Which is a great thing, except for when you have somebody working under you who is really trying hard and all you ever point out is the problems, right? To us,
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's our genius. Like, that's what we do. But to them, it's like you have to acknowledge the positive things. So that's been something actually that I work on to this day. And I've really tried to focus more on recently is like, I cannot just correct things all the time. I have to acknowledge all the amazing things that they do all the time. So it can be really hard, but so, so important.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to that 80% rule. I'm
Yep.
really loving that your coach gave you. I'm gonna use that for
Yeah.
sure. And honestly, like even thinking 80%, we're both like, but that's not 100. Like
I
that's not even
know.
90.
And she
And
told
like,
me that. I was like, what? And then just on a bigger concept. And then it was funny, my operations manager started using that like publicly, like saying to the team, like if it's 80%, it's good enough. And I had to be like, no, 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 no. That's not the message that we're sending. This is an internal conversation about we're gonna be okay with it.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
that's not public face. We don't tell our
No.
clients that, you
No, no,
know?
no, 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 no. No, that was funny though. I just remember thinking, oh gosh, I took this too far.
It's like real, like I wish I could rewind, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I really respect that. Yeah. Cause a lot of what I do too, like, and a lot of what our listeners do, like, I work in social media. So
Okay.
it's all perspective, right? Like, every
Yeah.
single client has a different idea of what they want
Mm-hmm.
their content to look like.
Yeah.
And to get them to say it is always the hardest part. Like, that's most of the time why they're outsourcing it because they don't
Interesting.
even know. Like most of the time there's some have some sort of visual or like
Mhm.
words in their head, but they
Mhm.
can't always put it to a
Yeah,
language.
I mean, I can relate to that. I've done that to my team. Like, I want it to look a certain way, and I have this image in my head, but I can't get it out. So, yeah, I totally get that.
Like I'll even have clients like I have them do Pinterest boards or like I have
Mm.
them find posts and I have them spend 2 weeks like collecting posts
Oh,
so
wow.
that I can start to be like, okay, this is what we're going for. It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Some
Hmm.
clients I'll even have them draw, like depending on the type of visionary they are. But
Yeah,
I find that utilizing our different skills, like you were saying, the zone of genius,
yeah.
everybody is so individual. And the same thing happens with our team members. Like, I remember having to learn what their skill sets were, like what types of
Hmm.
businesses they liked working with. I'm sure
Hmm.
you have the same thing. It's like, do they like first time home buyers or are they like,
Yeah.
absolutely not? I want the people that are like 10 years in, just buying rental properties.
Yeah.
Did you have to navigate that too, or did you just assist them with finding their own niches, like the agents that now work under you?
Yeah, so we really teach the fundamentals first. We don't get them niching down just yet. I always encourage them to start thinking about it, but really they've got it's the biggest misconception in real estate is people don't understand that it's sales. This is a sales industry. It's not a customer. I mean, there's some customer service in it, but people go into it thinking it's customer service and they want to serve and they want to assist when you need to lead, right? This is sales. Someone needs to you need to be brought through this transaction, and it's one of the biggest investments people make in their lives. So really we start with that. It's like foundation sales. How do you create authority? How do you navigate this? And then it's kind of like go get as much experience as you can. Go preview, go get to know your market, go become an expert quickly. And then from there, so that's really the priority is let's get you selling, let's get you understanding the process, and then after year 1 or 2, then we start to talk about, okay, what do we want to focus on?
That's really good advice. That's actually something my grandfather used to say. He was like, literally everybody's in sales, but everybody
Mm-hmm.
tries to act like they're not in
Yeah.
sales. Like he
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Sales is
even
like a dirty
doctors.
word, and they don't look at
Yes.
real estate as, I talk to agents every single day that want to apply for the team, and it's like, why do you want to get into real estate? And it's always, well, I like pretty houses, and I always love to look at houses, and that's great. I love looking at houses too, but again, sales is much different than that. It's,
Yeah.
there's so much to it, and it's not a dirty thing. It's a great thing. It's people, right? Nobody wants to be sold, but everybody loves to shop.
Yes.
That
Love
saying.
that.
And so you just got to learn how to, yeah, you got to learn how to do that and play that
Yeah.
game and be that resource for people.
Yeah, how to sell like in your way that you want to sell to
Yep.
and how you want to communicate. Like, I love selling. That's always something that I've loved to do. And people
Yeah.
would probably be like, that's so weird to say. But much like you, I'm sure I find it as like assisting the shopper,
Yeah.
like assisting somebody. I don't
Yep.
really feel like I'm selling them, even though I am selling
Right.
them
Right.
something. But it's like a different mindset too. I think people, like you said, it makes sense that your agents have to experience that in order
Hmm.
for them to grasp it. It's not really something that can be explained, at least
Yeah.
I've found,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we all have that picture of like the used car salesman, right? That's being really
Yeah.
pushy and all that stuff, but like that's not really sales. A great salesperson doesn't act that way. Um, they know how to develop the relationship and guide and be the authority and all those good things. So,
Yeah, it's exciting. So I would love to ask you a little bit more about the real estate market. Do
okay.
you know like what we can expect? I know that that's really hard to
I was going to
forecast,
say yes, I have a crystal ball and I know
right?
exactly what's going to happen.
I just love real estate. Like we bought our house. Our house has increased a lot. We bought our house in
Nice.
2020. I know the Florida market is
Oh,
very
that's
much
great.
so like booming as well, even though we're in a little bit of like a lull, we might say. But the
Yeah.
holidays tend to be that way anyway. So I would love to know your opinion. Like if we're looking to invest in real estate, what do you recommend? What can we expect to see next
Yeah.
year? Interest rates, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is you can really never time the market, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that wait. Ultimately, the right time to do something is when you're ready. You can always find a good value or a good deal, no matter what the market is. Even people who paid, during the boom, let's say they paid a lot of money, like they got a 3% interest rate or a 2.75 or something. So if you do the math compared to the rate and the price that they paid today, you didn't overpay, at the end of the day, you still got a great value. So that's the first thing is never wait on the market to do what you want to do in your life. As far as where it's going right now, the numbers are showing. So like in our market, I always like to look at a 10-year span because 2020 was an outlier, right? That'll never happen again. The rates will never go back, never say never, but like that was a pandemic produced market. So if we look at just the market as a whole, we're back to about 2018, 2019 numbers in inventory and even in rates. Rates back then were in the fives. So it's not like right now there's sixes. I had somebody close with a six, I think, the other day. I mean, that was pretty good. So I think rates are supposed to continue to creep down a little bit, nothing crazy. They don't want to throw the economy back into a crazy market. So they'll continue to drop a little bit. And as far as, homes selling, we're selling about the same number of homes as we were in 2019. So if sellers are reasonable, are reasonable / realistic and they want to sell, we can get their home sold as long as it's priced correctly. And if a buyer wants to buy, like we can get them something we can get closing costs covered. Like there's incentives, sellers are motivated. So it's really a nice balanced market right now.
That's so exciting. That's really
Yeah.
exciting to hear. Yeah. Because for so many months it was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
But now it's happy. I'm happy to hear it's leveled out a little bit. That
it
gives
is.
peace of
Yeah.
mind too.
Yeah, and we'll see what season has, and as the rates drop, buyers could heat up a little bit. We'll see. But it seems like buyer confidence is coming back, and so, people are starting to buy a little bit more than they were a year ago.
That's really exciting. I feel like
Yeah,
that always like sets the trend, like for my business too. Like that means the
yeah,
consumers coming back around. So
definitely.
we
Yeah,
love
for
to
all
hear that.
businesses. Yeah, agreed.
That's
Agreed.
awesome. That's so exciting. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Claire. Can you tell our
yeah,
listeners how to stay in touch with you, where we can find
yeah.
you on socials? And then, of course, for anybody listening, if you're multitasking, I will connect you with Claire personally.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook. The Gogan Team is my real estate team. Claire Gogan on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Gosh, I don't think I'm on the other ones. But yeah, and yeah, more than happy to help anyone. I have a newsletter that I send out. We do events and stuff. So anybody in real estate, certainly don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. This was so great.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin. Thank you for having me.
Of course, anytime.